Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the May 18th Finance and Audit Committee meeting. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Sinamic First Nation. Our clerk today will be Ms. Skye Snellgrove. Today's Finance and Audit Committee meeting will be held in accordance with the Community Charter and Procedure Bylaw number 2018, number 7272. The question period sign-up sheet is on the table by the double doors to my left for agenda items only. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding an agenda item, please write down your name and the agenda item on the sheet. Members have been granted the authority to join meetings electronically, so please refer to the guideline sheet for reference. Today we have the following. We have one councillor, Councillor Armstrong, attending electronically. The first item on the agenda is the introduction of late items. Ms. Snellgrove, we have none.
That's correct.
Motion for adoption of the agenda. Moved Councillor Hemmons, seconded Councillor Martman. All those in favour? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved Councillor Bonner, seconded Councillor Hemmons. All those in favour? Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no presentations. We have no delegations. But we do have a number of reports, and the first is the 2021 Statement of Financial Information, which the media will no doubt be expectantly waiting to hear and see and report on. Ms. Mercer, good morning and thank you, and please proceed.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning. So each year the City is required to produce the Statement of Financial Information, or the SOFI report as it's called, by June 30th of the following year, and that's per legislation. So today we have the 2021 SOFI for you. The SOFI is mainly made up of two things: the Schedule of Remuneration and Expenses, which is a listing of all council wages and expenses, as well as a listing of all staff earning over $75,000 and their corresponding expenses. The second biggest section of the report is the Schedule of Goods and Services. So this is a listing of all vendors who were paid over $25,000 during the year. The report also includes three other schedules. The first one being the Schedule of Debt. So all debt is detailed in Note 9 of the 2021 financial statements. And at December 31st, we had $45.9 million in outstanding debt. And that includes $11.2 million in new borrowing for Fire Station Number 1. The second schedule is a schedule of guarantee or indemnity. So all of this information is outlined in Note 12F of the financial statements, and the only item we have is a $2 million line of credit for the Port Theatre Society. And lastly, the schedule of severance agreements. So in 2021, we had one severance agreement, and that represented 15 months of compensation. So the only note I'll put on this is these thresholds for remuneration and expenses, as well as vendors, haven't changed in almost 20 years. So this listing is going to get larger and larger till those thresholds are increased. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you very much. Questions, Council? Well, Ms. Mercer, I think you're going to get an easy ride this morning. I will say something though to the general public, because I know there will probably be letters to the editor, as there often are, and concern about the number of people in our city who are earning over $75,000 a year. And let me just say this, that mercifully we live in a jurisdiction where we have progressive taxation, and I'd like to remind everyone that as you move further up the income scale, so does the tax rate accordingly, and that's one of the healthy ways democracy tries to redistribute wealth. So take some comfort in that, everyone. But the fact is, the demands on our public servants in this city are increasing. They're not diminishing, particularly with the exponential growth in population. And some of the criticism and demands that we receive as members of council from time to time about instituting new bylaws or trying to control behaviors that are beyond our jurisdiction. I just want to take this moment before I get to Councillor Turley to say thank you to staff for the work they have performed, particularly in the last couple of years, working through COVID, when those most often, or more often I should say, on the front lines who have to deal with the public, have faced some frustrated and understandably upset people who've seen their own lives disrupted enormously by COVID. So I'm more than going to say thank you from my perspective. Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Ms. Mercer. I read through the report, and the one thing that stuck out to me was with regard to the firefighters' remuneration. Several firefighters actually were earning more than a captain or lieutenant. I wonder if that is seniority related, or?
Through your worship to Councillor Turley. So during the year, the IFF settled their labor contract. So there was retro pay paid in 2021. So their regular pay plus that retro pay accounted for a bigger increase, or bigger numbers for many of the firefighters.
Thank you.
I might add, Councillor Turley, and I think the public needs to hear and understand this because it's true not just to the firefighters, but the RCMP, paramedics, all those who are first responders. With the stress of the last few years, the street disorder they're dealing with, the number of deaths, attendances at near deaths on a frequent basis, the reality is first responders in this province are facing significant stress. A number of folks are off on stress leave, and the response in a very tight labor market, particularly with people who are not skilled or trained for the work, is that there are enormous amounts of overtime involved, not just here, but across the province. And again, I'm going to use this as a teaching moment for the public and hope some people are paying attention. That is one of the ways things play out when things are tough. You are placing greater reliance on a limited pool of staff and workers who are available to do the hard work. And as long as the situation remains the same in our streets and the pressure is there, we are going to see this for a while yet, and I'm sorry to say it, but I think it's important to recognize it as well. And you're quite right to point out this morning that yes, some people have made significant amounts of money, but as Ms. Mercer's also indicated, it reflects a retroactive element. And I suppose I think it's only fair to say thank you to the firefighters for working as they do and continue to work as the law requires way beyond the time their contract actually expires. Any other questions for Ms. Mercer in this section or comments? Seeing none, the next, thank you very much, Ms. Mercer.
Excuse me, Mayor Krog, we do have a recommendation for that.
Oh yes,
item.
sorry.
Thank you.
Rushing along this morning. Councillor Martman moved, seconded Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is BC Better Homes Rebate Program Continuation. Mr. Lindsay, good morning.
Good morning, Your Worship, Council. We're here this morning to introduce this report and request the committee's support in a recommendation to allocate an additional $100,000 from your Climate Action Reserve Fund to the Clean BC Better Homes Rebate Program. Council or committee may recall you had originally allocated $100,000 back in 2020. The good news is that those rebates have been well received by the community, and we're one of the top participation rates among municipalities that were involved in this program across the province. But the downside of that means that we project we may run out of funds to continue the program by as early as this summer. So we're asking the committee's support for an additional $100,000 to be placed in support of this grant program. Ms. Pan, who's our sustainability manager, is here with me this morning and certainly happy to answer any specific questions on the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lindsay. Councillor Martman, are you left over from before?
Oh, yes, I am, but still, I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Seconded Councillor Hemmons. Does anyone wish to say anything before I go to Councillor Turley?
I just wanted to say I was pleased with how much the program has been used, right? And the effect that it has had. So this is great.
Thank you very much. Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Lindsay. So I'm assuming that this extra $100,000 is coming from reserves and not an addition. Actually, it would be Ms. Mercer. Sorry, not an addition to our recently decided upon tax rate.
Through your worship to Councillor Turley, yes, it is coming from the, I forget which reserve it is, but Climate Action Reserve Fund is where it's coming from. So there's no implication for taxes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Worship. I was wondering if when we first talked about this this program, we toyed with the idea of increasing the rebates, and I was wondering if staff have any views on if we were to increase the rebates to 2,000, would we have more uptake on this?
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, through your worship. And I think that I did an analysis looking at if we were to offer $2,000 instead of $350 for the fuel switch rebates, we're probably giving up similar amount that City of Victoria has given out, so around $230,000. I think that it seems like even without increased rebates, there's enough uptake. I think we can do more to promote and communicate and just encourage people to participate in the program. And I think City of Victoria has given out more rebates because they have generally older kind of building stocks that are probably more expensive to retrofit.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Not seeing anyone else? Someone wish to remove the... Oh, yes, we did already. Thank you. I should wake up this morning. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next item is Nanaimo Dragon Boat Festival Funding 2022. Mr. Harding, good morning.
Thank you, Worship. Pleased to bring this recommendation to Council. After many years of successfully running the Dragon Boat Festival in Nanaimo, the local Dragon Boat Nanaimo Society has dissolved. And there's a group, this group, as it was recommended on the transfer of the funds, has taken up the paddle or the flag, whatever a good analogy would be, to continue on with the event. One of the anomalies on this one, and one we want to highlight to Council and direction, is that under our event guidelines, funds are only to go to local groups. So if approved, this would be outside the guidelines. That being said, staff on this situation or this particular event support that recommendation. And have also met with this group a number of times and feel confident that they'll continue with the event. And even more so in talking to them how important the Nanaimo event is to the Dragon Boat community and overall events. It's one of the key events for the overall Dragon Boat series. So we're recommending that we take the $12,000 that was initially to the Nanaimo Association and provide it to this organization to continue with the event this year.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harding. Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Mr. Harding. First, I'll say I do support the transferring of the funds, but I have a question, and I'm not sure if my information is correct or not, but this is deemed to be a one-day event, I believe, as opposed to a 2-and-a-bit-day event that was the previous one. And I asked that for a very specific reason.
Yes, right. So what we're hearing now is registration is on a Friday. Most of the events is on the Saturday, but they are looking to do some on the Sunday. So they're looking still for the 2 days, but definitely registration's a Friday and Saturday. And then the Sunday's still in question, I believe.
Okay, so there's possibility it may be 2 days. Okay. And the reason I asked that is, of course, part of the report refers to earning money for charity through the beer garden, which my Rotary Club and I was involved in for probably the last 20 years. Doing a one-day beer garden is really marginal, given having the races happening at the same time, to make any money. If they're aiming at a beer garden this year, when we applied, we used to apply in March or April to get the beer garden license, and I would suggest that anybody has any thoughts about it now, it's already probably too late to apply because there's a lot of vetting that has to go on through the RCMP and other bodies. So. Other than that, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turley, Councillor Thorpe, and then Councillor Hemmons.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through you. So I read this report, and I will support it, I suppose. But I do have reservations, and I And it involves the fact that instead of supporting a local organizing committee, we're giving our city money to an outsider group, which I recognize is a not-for-profit group, but it is still very much a business. And the money they make from this would be put back into their business based in the Gorge and the various offshoots of that business, which seem to be multiple. And they acknowledge that they will make some contribution to Cancer Society, but that's not specified. And they state that an opportunity for local charities to benefit would come, as Councillor Turley said, through the beer garden and the Hospital Foundation setting up a booth. Well, to me, that's really not the same as having a local organizing committee raise thousands of dollars and give it to those organizations. So I'm not totally comfortable with this. Maybe you can give me more assurance. I read in your report that the Dragon Boat Festival directors have given their stamp of approval, so that gives me some comfort, I suppose. But I'll just state for the record that I'm not enthused about this. Thank you.
Yeah, Your Worship, to Councillor Thorpe, your points are some of the same concerns and issues as staff in reviewing this. And this is why we did bring it to council, because it is different. And this could be, as groups and organizations, it's becoming harder and harder to put on larger events. I think we may see other groups like this taking on some of the more complex events in the future. But your points are exactly the same concerns and issues that we had, and it is a change in how an event like this is being hosted and taken care of. So again, this is a political decision, and that's why we're bringing it forward.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Thank you. And I would love to see an event happen here in Nanaimo, recognizing it won't be the same as in past, and the proceeds won't go directly to our local charities. But it's a good event to have in our city. So probably for this year at least, I'll support it. Might have to look more carefully at it in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thorpe. In order, Councillors Hemmens, Bonner, Turley, and Armstrong, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very similar comments to Councillor Thorpe's. I'm happy to support because I found the report answers the big questions. But one thing I am curious about is it seems there's a capacity issue in Nanaimo for doing something like this. If the Dragon Boat Festival couldn't go ahead and then an outside group filled that gap, I guess I'm curious, was the same opportunity offered to local groups to organize? And then just my second piece was reiterating, I didn't like the fact that the charitable donation isn't directly benefiting our residents, and I wonder if that's something we can tweak. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Hemmens. It is to do this, particularly to do the event, this type of a sporting event, you need to have the knowledge of what's going on. So this group's definitely set up to do that. In fact, they've worked with the local group. They've actually ran the racing component of this event for a number of years. And so I think that's why this is going to this group. My assumption would be if we did go out to other groups or organizations, they would have to rally the same people to put on the volunteering side of the event. And it's that group that's just they've done their community initiatives for so many years. They're tired, and it's hard to put on an event. And I think coming out of COVID, I was going to mention with to Councillor Thorpe too. Coming out of COVID, it's more risky for a lot of groups too to put on events, and so I think this year will be different as we come out of COVID and actually put on events. And then next year we'll see how the community might rally again and say, okay, we're ready to do this again.
Okay.
On our own. And then if I could, Councillor Hemmens, on the last one, absolutely, you can tweak if there's if anything is raised by beer gardens or other revenue that could go to a local group, you can absolutely change that.
Do you want a motion? Or is that something that you feel comfortable negotiating with the organizers?
I think given how these funds are used, I think a motion is appropriate.
Okay. Your Worship, if I may. Sorry, your point.
We have a motion, but we have a number of other speakers, so.
Thank you. It was actually a different motion, but I'll wait till the first one is moved.
Thank you. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm fine with this recommendation by staff. I look at it as we are coming out of COVID, and we need to help get back on track as fast as possible. If this event didn't take place, I think that would be a very sad thing to happen for our city, and when we've been having it for so many years. And I also look at the economic spin-offs of such an event, hotel stays. This is sports tourism at its finest. And so I'm very much in favor of finding some way to help that at least limp along until it gets picked up again by a local committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bonner. Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I look upon this as interim because we will have the opportunity to relook at the grant for 2023. And I just want to clarify something, and I've got to be really careful how I do this. With regard to the charity that would be receiving funds, which in my opinion won't be much because there is no beer garden, being the BC Cancer Foundation, how the hell can I? I've had my knuckles wrapped once, so I don't want to have them wrapped twice, but in my opinion, it will certainly help the island, including Nanaimo, and that's as far as I can go. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turley. Councillor Armstrong, and then Councillor Gesselbrock.
Oh, sorry. Actually, Councillor Bonner said everything I wanted to say. I think we'll see huge economic benefit from it, so I don't have as big an issue with it because of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock?
I'm supportive of the recommendation.
Thank you very much. I very much appreciate Councillor Thorpe's point. I mean, this is stepping out of policy. That's set out in the report. Mr. Harding has done absolutely the right thing bringing it back to council. But, you know, I'm conscious of the fact that it is getting, it seems, harder and harder for organizations to put on various events. The enthusiasm, memberships gets older and tired, and candidly, with a number of events in this community where they haven't been taking place in the last couple of years because of COVID, I wouldn't want to take the risk that we lose this. It is for all the reasons that all members of council have articulated so well, certainly part of a sports tourism strategy, certainly long-term economic benefit. As I see it, anyone who comes to this lovely city, seeing it once is probably going to come back again. But if we don't get them here the first time, and for others, it has historically been an annual event to celebrate something that's very important and raise money for a very important cause. So I will support it. And I see Councillor Thorpe. We're going to give him the last word.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. No, I really appreciate the conversation on this, and my hesitation I wanted to express, but I do support this, and I recognize that staff have done a careful job in vetting this and talking to the former organizing committee. So I take all of those points into consideration. And Councillor Turley, the risk of getting your knuckles slapped, thank you for your comment. So no, I'm okay with supporting the recommendation as it stands. And I think in terms of supporting local charities, if Mr. Harding can make our thoughts known informally as things progress, then that's good enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do have a recommended motion. Moved Councillor Hemmons, seconded Councillor Martman. I'm not seeing any further discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much. Good discussion. Next item is the Neck Point Park Washroom Project.
Thank you, Worship. This is an information. Sorry.
Another victim of inflation.
Well, a number of things. I think inflation and how busy the local market is, as well as that COVID premium that is mentioned in the report. This is an information report of us having to transfer some funds from another project to make this project happen. Staff still believe this is a very important project to get done. It's well past due to have a facility like this at Neck Point, and looks pricey, but that's what the market is. And it is a nice building. It's a green roof. It provides, again, some amenities that are long needed for that park.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Any questions for Mr. Harding? It's a report. We're not asking for a motion this morning. Councillor Bonner and then Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Inflation is 6%, and that's not inflation, right? This is like almost a 50% increase. It just brings up, in my mind, is sometimes this the best way to go in terms of, I understand where we are in terms of the city and how our workers are and all that things, but can we build our own washrooms, I guess is the question, right? Is can we look at some of these things, and can this done with city staff and that sort of thing? And I from a person who used to bid on, not jobs necessarily like this, but on landscaping contracts, if you didn't want it, you just bid crazy. And if you got it, it's because nobody else wanted it either. And then it made it worth your while. So I'm just curious, are we able to look at some of these things where the tender is so much higher that looking at it internally sort of thing?
Your Worship, Councillor Bonner, we had 2 bids that came in on this one, and they were relatively close. So that's where we felt comfortable that was what the market was saying, and we had two good local contractors bid for it. So I think if we just had the one bid and it was way off, we would have probably just canceled the bid and rethought it. But since we got 2 and it was in there, it's just, I think it's where the construction market is. When the pricing for this was done a couple of years ago, it just didn't reflect what the local market is now.
Okay.
And on your question about staffing, we do have some really good carpenters on staff, and they do amazing work. But they're completely full on doing other work. These types of projects, we'd have to take them off other projects to put them on these types of things. So they're fully engaged in other projects. You can do that in-house in some things. This type of buildings, though, we feel it's better to go out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bonner. Councillor Turley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Harding. This probably was in the previous report when it was first decided, but I don't remember. So is there an increase in seats? I don't know how else to put it.
We'll have to
Enough for a council meeting, perhaps, or?
Yes, no.
Did you say seeds?
Seats, as in what you sit on.
I'm assuming as as people have to, again, when people look at washrooms, they think, how can this cost so much? But like I've mentioned to some other groups, when you build public facilities, you got to build them very, very sturdy and so they don't get vandalized. So our vandalism is extremely high in these kind of buildings. So you have to, the seats that we do buy are very, very sturdy seats.
Well, I'm not worrying about that. I'm worrying about whether we're going from 2 seats to 4 seats or in the facility.
Well, really right now, there's really not really a facility there. It's just a portable facility with a pit. It's basically a pit toilet. This is going
I
a
realize
completely
that.
different type of facility.
If you build it, they will come.
Apparently.
I suppose, Councillor Turley, we could consider banning food and beverage trucks from the area to reduce volume.
Okay, so it's...
Through your worship to Councillor Turley. So what we have there is 1 seat essentially. And so the increase here is it's 2 separate universally accessible washrooms with multiple fixtures in each. And then what was added, which is different than what was priced 2 years ago, is there's a park user change area added to the side of the original washroom block. Through the Reimagine process, that was something that was brought forward for Neck Point Park, was an area for scuba divers, swimmers, and just park use for changing. So kind of in that last minute before we went to tender, we weren't able to show it in the 3D tenders, or in the 3D illustrations that are attached here, but we did add some square footage. So there's a little bit of a reasoning to some of that premium increase as well.
And I must say, I appreciate Councillor Bonner's comments about the consumer price index, but as Mr. Sims has pointed out on various occasions, when it comes to construction, the inflation rate for material and et cetera is significantly different than the ordinary consumer price index. I'm not buying a lot of 3-foot pipe at my house, but not that it's needed either, I might add, in light of Councillor Turley's comments, but it's certainly a consideration. I'm not seeing any further questions on this most interesting topic. Thank you very much, Mr. Harding. Sorry to hear the news, but the public has needs, and we have to be able to meet them. No other business? I think it's safe to say no question period, as we had no one in attendance this morning, save staff. Councillor Martman moves adjournment, seconded Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone, for this morning. It's been one of the more fun meetings we've had.